Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a close look at a really fascinating, maybe even a bit unsettling chapter from the Bible.
Hmm.
It's 2 Kings chapter 16. We've got the text itself and, some thoughts on what it might mean for us today.
Right.
Our goal really is to unpack the story of King Ahaz of Judah as it's laid out here and see what timeless lessons we might find.
Absolutely. And it's more than just history, isn't it? It's a powerful narrative about choices, leadership under pressure, and, well, the consequences for faith.
Okay, so let's dive right in. The chapter kicks off introducing Ahaz. He becomes king of Judah, reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, but straight away the text says he did not do what was right in the sight of the Lord his God as his father David had done.
Yeah, that comparison to David hits you immediately.
It feels really significant, doesn't it? What jumps out at you about that initial framing?
Well, it sets David up as the benchmark, the model of faithfulness. So, by contrasting Ahaz right at the start, the story is basically signaling, okay, buckle up. We're heading away from God's ways here in Judah.
And it's not a subtle departure either. It says Ahaz walked in the way of the kings of Israel. Now, for anyone familiar with the background, that's a big warning sign.
Definitely not a compliment in this context.
And then there's the mention of making his son pass through the fire, which sounds horrifying,
Yeah.
and sacrificing in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. These seem like really clear violations.
Well, absolutely. These weren't minor slips. He's embracing practices explicitly forbidden.
Yeah.
That pass through the fire thing was linked to, pagan idol worship.
Yeah.
And the high places were often sites for, well, Canaanite rituals. It's a definite move away from worshiping God alone.
So then the story shifts. There's external pressure. Big time. Rezin of Syria and Pekah of Israel attack Judah. They besiege Jerusalem but don't quite conquer it.
Mm-hmm. A close call.
But Rezin does manage to recapture Elath for Syria
Mm.
and kicks out the Jewish inhabitants. This sounds like a genuine crisis for Ahaz. How must that have felt?
You have to imagine the pressure cooker he was in. His capital city is under attack. A key port is lost. People are displaced. That creates fear, uncertainty.
Makes sense.
And it probably pushed him towards looking for, quick fixes, maybe without thinking too hard about the spiritual side effects.
And the fix he chooses,
Yeah.
well, it's revealing. Instead of turning to God, he sends messengers off to Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria.
The regional superpower at the time.
Right, and he basically says, I'm your servant and your son, come save me from Syria and Israel. It feels like such a worldly political calculation.
It really does, and it highlights that classic tension, doesn't it? Where do we turn when things get tough? Ahaz leans hard into human power, political alliances.
Yeah.
Rather than looking for divine help, it makes you think about how tempting that still is today, prioritizing the, let's say, tangible solutions over faith.
And to make this deal happen, Ahaz raids the temple treasury, takes silver and gold from there, plus his own palace funds, and sends it all as tribute to Assyria.
Wow. Using God's resources to buy protection from a foreign king.
It really shows where his priorities shifted, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's like saying earthly power is more reliable, more immediate than God's protection. It poses a question for us too. What temple treasures our time, our energy, our money do we maybe misdirect when we lean too hard on worldly solutions?
Good question.
Yeah.
And, well, Assyria takes the deal. They attack Damascus, capture it, exile the people, kill King Rezin. So, short term, Ahaz got what he paid for.
Problem solved, militarily speaking.
But this alliance, it seems like it came with some serious spiritual strings attached, right?
Absolutely. The immediate threat is gone, but relying on Assyria just opens the door wider for more compromise down the line. It starts affecting Judah's whole religious identity.
Okay, this next part is where it gets really strange. After this Assyrian victory, Ahaz goes to Damascus to meet Tiglath-Pileser. Standard political visit, maybe?
Seems like it.
But while he's there, he sees an altar. And he's apparently so impressed by it that he sends the blueprint, basically, the design and pattern, back to Urijah the priest in Jerusalem.
An Assyrian altar design.
Yes. And he tells Urijah, build me one of these. What strikes you about that?
Just the sheer speed and enthusiasm. He sees something foreign, something tied to the power that just bailed him out and immediately wants to copy it. It shows how easily influenced he was.
Yeah.
It suggests he's willing to just blend foreign religious stuff into their own worship. Makes you wonder about the altars in our own culture that catch our eye and tempt us away from our core commitments.
And Urijah the priest just does it. He builds this new altar in the temple before Ahaz even gets back from Damascus.
That's another layer, isn't it? The religious leadership just going along with it.
So Ahaz returns, And he doesn't just look at the new altar, he starts using it, offering sacrifices on this Assyrian-style altar. And then, maybe even more shocking, he takes the original bronze altar, the one the Bible calls the brazen altar, which was before the Lord, and shoves it aside, moves it to the north side.
He demotes God's altar.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
He says the new big altar is for all the regular daily sacrifices,
Yeah.
morning, evening, the king's offerings, the people's offerings.
So the foreign altar becomes the main one?
Right. And the original bronze altar, Ahaz says that one is just for me to inquire by, like for his personal use sometimes.
That's a huge shift. The symbol of their covenant with God is now secondary, almost a private tool for the king, while this imported altar takes pride of place for public worship. It perfectly illustrates how leaning on the world can mess up our spiritual priorities.
And the changes didn't even stop there. Ahaz kept tinkering. He cut off parts of the bases for the lavers, took the big bronze sea basin off its oxen statues, and put it on stone pavement.
Just dismantling things.
Yeah, and he even altered something called the covert for the Sabbath, and the king's special entrance to the temple, apparently because of the king of Assyria. It feels like the whole place is being remodeled to fit in with his political ties.
It really does. And those might seem like smaller details, but added together, they show this gradual chipping away at tradition, accommodating foreign influence bit by bit right inside the temple. It really shows how one compromise can just lead to another, and another, subtly changing everything.
So we see this clear pattern. Ahaz faces a crisis, he grabs a worldly solution, the Assyrian alliance, and then, step by step, he compromises his faith and adopts foreign religious stuff. This was centuries ago. But what's the big takeaway for people listening today? How can understanding Ahaz actually strengthen our faith now?
Well, I think Ahaz's story is a really powerful, maybe cautionary reminder about that first reaction when trouble hits. His choice, prioritizing that political deal over trusting God, really set the trajectory for everything else.
Right, it was the starting point.
Exactly. So for us, it underscores how important it is to consciously choose, try to seek God first when we're struggling instead of just immediately grabbing for worldly security blankets. Making that active choice can really deepen our reliance on him.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about where we anchor our trust.
Precisely. And his fascination with that Assyrian altar, integrating it into the temple, that speaks volumes about how subtle cultural influences can be, how easily our values can get reshaped by the world around us without us even noticing sometimes.
Yeah, the pressure to conform or adopt things.
Right. We can also be tempted maybe to adopt practices or prioritize things that don't quite align with our faith. So recognizing that temptation and actively deciding to stay rooted in our core beliefs, that's key for spiritual integrity. That strengthens faith.
Now, what about his leadership? The way his choices clearly impacted Judah's worship.
Oh, that's huge. It's a stark reminder that leadership, not just kings, but parents, bosses, community leaders, anyone with influence, our actions and values ripple outwards. Our choices can either draw people closer to faith or, well, push them away. Trying to live authentically according to our beliefs is actually a powerful form of leadership in itself.
And the gradual nature of the temple changes you mentioned.
Yes, that highlights how important it is to be vigilant against those seemingly small compromises. The little adjustments we make here and there.
They add up.
They really can. Over time, they can erode our spiritual foundations. So being mindful, being intentional about guarding our faith, resisting those subtle shifts away from integrity that's crucial for long-term spiritual health, learning from Ahaz's mistakes helps us choose differently, aiming for that unwavering faith.
So wrapping up our look at 2 Kings 16, the reign of King Ahaz really seems to drive home the serious consequences of, well, turning away from God and grabbing onto worldly fixes instead.
Yeah, it's a powerful story.
His story really highlights why unwavering faith matters so much, especially when life throws challenges our way.
Which leads us to maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Think about the subtle ways modern culture, its values, its priorities, might be nudging your own faith. Are there any sort of altars today that might be quietly pulling your focus away from your relationship with God?
That's a provocative question.
It is, and maybe ask, how can you actively cultivate a deeper reliance on him and, intentionally guard against those compromises creeping into your daily life?